Hello, welcome back to my podcast with Love and Honesty. I'm your host, Penelope Gabriella, and we are on episode 2 already. I am super excited and passionate about this next episode. It was so hard trying to choose what to talk about next because there are so many things I want to talk about. Today on episode 2, we will be talking about hyper independence as a first generation child, or as well child of immigrants. So I was here born in the United States. My mother was born in the US here too. My father was born in Ecuador. So my mother is Dominican mixed with Puerto Rican, and my father is from Ecuador. And then there's me. The inspiration for a specific episode was based on this TikTok that I had seen all over my For You page. It was created on TikTok by Honey Les. Her name is Leslie, and it was specifically titled Mi hija es muy independiente. I had reached out to Leslie myself to let her know about this and to give her credit. If you are on TikTok, let me just pull up her account. It's honey les _ looks like that specifically. So I just want to give a big shout out to her. And I just wanted to say thank you for using your voice to reach out to an audience that can really relate and to feel seen. Social platform, especially in a generation where we are personally learning how to heal. Very hard to disconnect yourself from what you have known growing up and what has been considered so normal. A lot of topics that weren't necessarily brought up with when I had growing up, just I feel like a lot of people can relate to this as well, are now having brought awareness to it. We want to just make sure that it's not continued with the generations that are coming, after us. We don't want to continue certain things that we grew up with. It's kind of hard to find the exact definition of this because there were so many different definitions on it. I think it's still maybe a new topic that a lot of people are researching on. What is hyper independent? Is, from what I gathered up on the internet, a stress response that causes people to feel they must make decisions and accomplish things without the support of others that can stem from past trauma or lack of support. Let's take a moment to really just take that in, think about it, process it. It just broke my heart to see so many of us just break down. And my heart, I see and feel that pain. Ew, I'm gonna cry. These videos were made in the comments of how many people can relate to it, especially, as women and as we are now stemming to adulthood. It's tough. Feels also so comforting and such a relief when you do see these videos that are posted on the internet and that are brought awareness, because you realize that so many people have gone through it and are currently going through it too. I don't know if there's ever going to be a time where it's going to stop. I hope it'll change going years down along the line. When you talk to other people that maybe aren't in the same dynamic as you or haven't grown up the same way as you, they don't really understand, and it's hard. But when you do find someone, especially when you are trying to make a friend or when you're at work and you meet Hispanic coworkers or anyone within first generation, whatever culture they're from, and you talk about this stuff to them and they can relate to you, relieving feeling, because it just connects the both of you two together. I want to say like trauma bond, but it's a thing. It happens. I've met so many people that just feel the same way as me. And when I express myself to them, they're like, yeah, it's like finally someone that understands. It is hard because we can't talk about it with our parents. That just also stems from being forced to grow up in an immigrant household, taking on responsibilities we didn't have to take, but it was really brought upon us because that's the way how it's supposed to be. And it's because our parents grew up a certain way and they just know that because of what they grew up with. So then they're bringing it along to us. And it's also labeled as helping out. If we aren't helping out, then they shame us for being quote unquote lazy. And then we feel guilty for it as well, because then it feels like we're a bad kid. Heard the terms, from our parents, whether it's from our mother or if it's from our father, we always hear them say, nadie me ayuda en esta casa. No, we do. And there might be a day or a week where we may slack off and we're just busy with a lot of stuff. But to them, that's just something that is not okay. So we're growing up, we're learning to do a bunch of things, managing life as well. We're learning a bunch of things about ourselves. When they do say that, you just have to remind yourself that it's because they project the stress onto the household, projection on how they feel, and it's also the way how they grew up. They weren't necessarily brought in probably the healthiest conditions, especially with Hispanic households. It's very hard for them, at least, to express their feelings because they weren't necessarily taught that growing up, or they were dismissed with how they felt. Then they bring those characteristics and sub it on to us in our generation, and we feel it. We don't want to complain either and try to make things more tense or stress out in the house, because if we do try to speak up, then they pull the card of, oh, well, you have it good, or you had it better than me. And it's just that life comparison that is not necessary, and it's not healthy. It's not changing anything. It's kind of making things more stressful and frustrating. It feels as if you're almost not even heard of what you're expressing about. And it's hard because, again, they weren't brought up that way either, and they weren't shown that it's okay to express how you feel. We can only take as much as we can until we break, or until a switch goes off, and all of a sudden then, tension blows up and it builds up over time. Whether it happens to you when you're young or when you're older, it's gonna happen. I just want to say I'm so sorry for the way how this was brought up upon so many of us, because we are so young and we didn't deserve any of it. We did not deserve any of it. Whether it was brought on the first child, the second child, the middle child, or the last child, or all of them as well. For me, with my siblings, we're all kind of grown now. I want to say that we don't need our parents, but from a young age, we have been accustomed to relying on each other, because that's what we've been so used to. And whether our parents want to admit it or not, it's something that me and my siblings all agree on, and we feel strongly about this, which is, again, not something that my parents may see in their eyes or may agree with. But in a sense, me and my siblings, we did all raise each other. A lot of the times growing up, we just had to take care of one another. It wasn't our parents' fault either. It's just because of the lack of resources that they had, or family members. All of our family members don't necessarily live close to us, or they don't live in the States at all. And of course, there's some family dynamics that just don't get along, or we're not close to like that. And it's hard, because as much as we want to live in a perfect world, it's just things that are out of our control sometimes. Or it wasn't necessarily me and my siblings' fault, because, again, we're just the kids. We're just kind of brought into this world. It's also America's system as well, because childcare isn't exactly affordable either, especially in the system here in the States. They want to try and make it seem like it's this great thing. It's not. My parents did the best that they could with the resources. Parents don't have a choice but then to let their kids just kind of watch over one another, and you're kind of grown up to just be quiet and make sure you don't answer the door to anyone, or don't do this and that, because, again, just the finances and the lack of resources here in America. Younger, I remember one of the things that my mother always told me to do, for my little brother, was to make him a sandwich. And I remember as a kid, I had stood up for myself, and I told her and questioned her, and I told, why do I have to make him a sandwich? Why can't he make it himself? And then she brings up, oh, the sister, you're supposed to take care of your brother. You're supposed to, watch over him. And this is what you're supposed to do. You guys don't understand the amount of sandwiches I've had to make. I don't eat sandwiches at all. I hate touching ham, hate touching cheese, ketchup, mayo. I can't. I'm disgusted even looking at it and seeing at it, smelling it too. I can't. I just can't. If you do see me eating a sandwich, it's because someone else made it for me. Navigating through adulthood on our own, because our parents weren't in the same situations as us, that's one of the hardest things, because as our parents, we go to them and we seek for them for advice. We want them to have all the answers in the world, but we also have to understand that this is their first time navigating through life too. And I understand that my parents were not in the same situation that I'm currently in at my life, in my stage. At my age, they had a different life, different responsibilities compared to mine as of right now. And it sucks because you want to have that guidance. The beginning of like my high school freshman year, I had moved into a predominantly white neighborhood, and it sucked because you saw, especially when it came around like college time and senior year, you saw how involved like these parents were with their children. And when it came for me, I didn't have that. I kind of had to just go to my sister and seek advice because she had gone through it first, and we learned how to navigate it on our own. So we have been figuring a lot of things out together. For a lot of things, she had to figure it out first. There are times where I had to figure some things out for the first time by myself. We don't feel like we could lean on our parents for because they don't have the resources or they can't help us. They don't know how to help us. And it's not their fault. This affects all of us heavily when we are adults or trying to grow into young adults. It's not something that a lot of us can handle very well, and it takes time to reflect. We kind of grew up with this idea that asking for help is such a bad thing, and we just feel like we can do it all and we can take it all. I definitely have that issue where I need to learn how to put my ego aside, just admit to myself to ask for help. Or especially when I'm working, a lot of people ask me, oh, do you need help carrying this or doing that? Because I'm very small and they don't think that someone as small as me, can carry such heavy stuff. No, I prove them wrong. I'm always like, no, I got this. I always reject the help. I'm like, I can do this. I got it. I'm so independent. I love being independent. Sometimes it's very exhausting. I'm not going to lie, being independent and feeling like I have to be like this. It's not something that I always want to do. I feel like sometimes I'm also in survival mode, feeling like we all have to be independent and learning how to grow up and managing this whole life thing and adulthood. It's hard because, again, most of this stems from when we were younger, and a lot of us had to be parents to our siblings and take on that role because when our parents weren't in the house or they were too busy working, for those of us that have experienced it, it was passed on to us. And if it's not one child, when that child's not home, then it's passed on to the next one. It's not my sister, then it's passed down to me. To be independent, I feel like it could be such a positive trait to have, but it could also be a toxic trait and sometimes can, in my opinion, lead to your downfall if you're not careful with it. If you need help, it's fine. It's normal because we just feel like we can take it all on. We can do this and I got this under control. But then you break down and then you feel so bad. You feel like shit. You feel terrible and you're like, oh, I wish I had help. But then again, it's hard because you can't accept it like that. And it's based on that hyper independence that we all had growing up. I just want to say that you guys are not alone. If you guys have felt like this before, just know that I understand how you guys feel. It's not your fault that you had to endure all of this at such a young age, whether it was cleaning, taking care of your siblings, just all this stuff that comes within being a first generation child here in America or wherever you are, and enduring it as well. To know that it's also painful. It hurts. Give yourself grace. Be patient with yourself. You can get through this. I don't know what my next episode is going to be. I haven't decided if I wanted to do this every week, every 2 weeks, based on my schedule, obviously my availability, but I definitely do want to keep this up. Thank you guys so much for listening to my second episode. I hope you guys really loved it. It was not an easy thing for me to talk about, and I will see you in my next episode.